Hey, what's up, man?
Eugene, how you doing?
Dude, I was gonna do this for my car today too, but I was like, it's gonna be too unprofessional. So I went up. I'm visiting my parents here in Las Vegas, so I went up to their guest room here to do it from here.
No worries. For the reason I'm sitting here, I just realized I left my headphones at my office. So if the audio quality isn't all that good, we can just, have some fun and chop it up for a minute and do something a bit more professional later down the line if you want.
No, actually, the audio is actually really good on your end. Yeah,
Okay.
it's very clear.
Yeah, no, I just dug through my entire briefcase. I just ran out the door in a hurry this morning and figured I'd be able to fit you in here. So yeah,
Okay. Hey,
good. Good.
your real name is pronounced Totenkov? Is that your real name or just your Instagram name?
Just an Instagram handle. I
Oh, okay.
I can't even really remember how the name came around. It was I since like high school I used that, and the lab part was I was a bit of a chemistry biology nerd, and so I had all kinds of fun little experiments and stuff going in my hobbies and my part time. So the name kind of stuck. So, and I've kept it ever since.
Do you want to be referred to that or just go by your real name?
I can go by Totenkov. That's fine.
Okay, cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll just wing it. I usually just let my guests do all the talking for the most part. And honestly, I usually just invite people I actually know on the podcast or have kind of networked through. But I do invite like random people I find interesting from time to time too, just because they're interesting, you know? So that's the cool thing about having a podcast. You can meet like new people you probably would have never met in person.
That's exactly it, man. And that's part of why I like social media. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but you wind up coming across all kinds of types you just otherwise wouldn't have in real life. And mine and my brother's sort of rather unique sets of hobbies and interests, and it's those types are often far and few between. And so that's part of the reason that I've enjoyed building a bit of a following on social media, just to see who else is out there and has similar thoughts, philosophies, ideologies, mindsets, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. When did we first connect? Because you had commented on a video that I had posted and said, "Hey, are we ever going to get together and have a chat?" And a long time had passed.
Yeah, I think it's been a little while. I think I don't even know how I ran into your page. It probably just like randomly as most people online.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was when I was still probably living in Big Bear because I was kind of living in the woods like that too during COVID. So my parents had a cabin up in Big Bear, so I went and just lived up there and kind of just trained with the few kettlebells I had
Yeah.
and went and ran, took a dip in the river every morning, which was like ice cold. Then they had a sauna and bathtub at home too. So luckily, like a lot of the regenerative farms delivered there as well. So I didn't even have like a supply food problem either. I'm like, man, this is the life, you know? I don't even know why I even gravitated towards living in the city. It's like ridiculous, you know? But
Yeah.
I'm actually going to just start recording just so we can keep it casual.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, then we can go from there. Let me see.
Yeah. No,
Uh, All right, so I made a mistake, not the most technical guy in the world here. But yeah, I have my friend Totenkov here, his Russian alias, lifelong Russian alias name here.
exactly.
But yeah, Totenkov. I always like inviting people on the podcast that are living actually true to like a health conscious and balanced lifestyle, just to kind of hear like what works for them. And oftentimes there's a lot of overlap with really just mastery of the basics, but everyone has their own unique twist to it. And then a couple of other supplementary things they do. And I know these days, especially with kind of like you mentioned earlier, social media being a double-edged sword, I would say working more against you than for you in most cases. But I would feel these days it's like for a person that wants to go on an honest health journey, it's like more difficult than ever to decipher like what actually needs to be done to make that happen, even when that is your intention to make that happen. I know a lot of people are always looking for quick fixes, which especially in health never exist.
No.
But I just wanted to kind of invite you on because I thought you were like really interesting. And I was kind of before I didn't think we were recording, but we're actually recording. I was kind of telling you my backstory of how I went to live in the woods and stuff of that sort. So I just like to invite people on just to see what they've been doing, what their life goals are, and how they kind of manage being health conscious and a not so health conscious world. So you're welcome to take over and just kind of discuss your history. Have you had any maybe health problems before in the past that you've experienced and how you've overcome them, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. To as a start off point, before when we weren't recording there, and you were talking about going off and living in the woods. Well, that's the ultimate dream, and I kind of do. Split my time in between work and professional life in the city, as well as a ample amount of time in nature and outdoors. And you kind of made me chuckle there with the kettlebells and the living in a cabin. It sounds like the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I got started. I the wooden workout implements equipment that you see in videos of mine and my brothers. I built that bench press when I was, I think, 15 or 16 years old, and had it in the back. And I had lifted throughout high school and stuff, but I was never a fat kid. I was never an overweight kid, but I certainly didn't really grow up with weightlifting as a kind of a form of, you know, a hobby, kind of a core tenant being or anything like that. Just kind of grew into it as most guys do. And I built that bench because I love working with my hands, rather technically inclined, able to build things, create things, and whatnot. And so it was a fun project that turned into a lifelong joy of just lifting weights and being strong. And being strong is always a good thing. There's never a time when being strong, either of body or of mind, is detrimental to your path and purpose, right? And I think that's been a guiding principle throughout my life in professional work, in hobbies, in interests, and kind of grew from there. As for your comment about the kettlebells and the river plunges and all that stuff. When COVID hit, I was actually studying in a city away from where I currently live, and one day they just walked in, they shut the gym down, and I went, oh, like
Life is over.
well, life isn't over, but an important part of it certainly just took a hit. um, Kind of went, oh shit, I got to get this figured out ASAP. And the original bench that I had built at my house actually I couldn't afford any bars or plates, and so I had buckets full of sand and pieces of gas pipe and random bits of metal that we had welded together into rough dumbbells and stuff. And thought, well, I need a rack. And so in short order, I think I was actually like in between service on my cell phone driving down a rural highway, and I was talking to one of my buddies who had a connection to some good sounds like a drug dealer or something, had a connection to some good barbells and plates,
It
because
was
during
like that though, especially
it
in the
was
beginning. You needed the
back
connections.
that stuff and there was no barbells and plates left. Everyone was figuring out that the one world government was going to lock them in their houses and they wouldn't have any plates, so they all flew off the shelves. But yeah, I picked up 200 kilos worth of bumpers, a bar, and then put together that rack. So I guess it's a few years old now. It seems to be holding up pretty darn good. And yeah, lifting weights is just a joy. It never gets old, and it never fails to deliver. Right? It's sometimes you walk into the gym and you're feeling absolutely lit up and you're ready to roll. It's a good time. And other times it's just, why am I here? I want to be doing anything else. But I've never walked out of the gym feeling worse than when I walked. I never walked out feeling worse than when I walked in. That's for sure. Mentally, that is right. Um, even if it was a crappy session, like I spent a lot of years in Olympic weightlifting, which is a very mentally challenging discipline as much as it is physical. And sometimes things don't connect and bars don't go up and you just throw your hands up and walk out. But work got done, and
Mhm.
effort is never wasted, right? Output and energy and effort directed into the things that are important to you, it's never wasted. Some days may feel better than others, but I do think that energy output has a positive accumulative effect in your life for sure. So, anyways, just blabbing, but those are some of the ideas surrounding lifting and weights.
Yeah. Especially on leg days, I too sometimes sit in the car in the parking lot for like 10 minutes before I go into the gym. And I'm like, oh man, why do you keep doing this to yourself, dude? You know, it's like you're already 20 years, man. Come on.
You know what I been for that? If leg day is an issue and you just hate training legs, I do a year worth of powerlifting or do a year's worth of weightlifting, because Olympic weightlifting literally is leg day. Leg day,
Hmm.
it's front squats or it's back squats or it's snatch pulls or it's clean pulls or it's hypers or something like that. And so if you choose, instead of just going to the gym for just kind of routine bodybuilding stuff, if you choose to take up a more specific discipline under the umbrella of lifting weights and strength culture, that could be helpful. You know, you're kind of forced into a position where you got to do that stuff. So leg day, I don't know, it's never bothered me all that much.
No, actually, ironically, that's my favorite day because
Oh,
it's
really?
also the day, yeah, the day after, it's always a day off too. So I try to push it extra hard because I know I don't have to do anything the next day.
You're a real masochist, man. Holy shit. Leg day is
Yeah.
the favorite. I always know that I've done real damage if like the back inside of my hamstrings get really, really sore and I'm hobbling like I've got chopsticks for legs. Then I know some real damage has been done. And I don't, I've never really taken to rolling around on the foam roller or doing much fiddling around on the ground with a lacrosse ball or something. And doing that stuff is helpful, and you should. Maybe as I get older, that kind of stuff will be more important. I've been pretty lucky and never had any serious injuries or anything, so that's a whole other aspect of lifting, working around injuries and working through stuff when there's a physical impediment to
Hmm.
movements properly. So
Well, are you currently mainly focused on like aesthetics or function? Like, what are you trying to like achieve with your actual routine? And what have you found didn't work in the past? What do you find maybe confusing online with hearing from a lot of people? What do you find has worked for you?
yeah, I think those are all really great questions. I don't think I have a very aesthetic physique. I'm pretty barrel chested. I don't really have much. I could probably afford to lose probably 10 or 15 pounds to really see some like a lean strength type appearance. But I've always been fairly happy with it, and I think that my goals in the gym and lifting have always been more kind of strength centric. I've never spent a ton of time in the gym purely on aesthetics. If I was, the first thing I would do is, you know, lose some more weight. I've never been overweight. The heaviest I ever was about 225, and I was strong as hell, but I didn't find I like it. I love to run. I love to cycle, and so those kind of endurance and cardio um, uh, pleasures have always kept me on a fairly even keel in between strength and cardio capacity and that kind of stuff. So I never found myself in a situation where I was doing some kind of quote unquote dirty bulk thing and gaining all this weight without really too much kind of strength return on that. So as far as um, time spent in the gym and what I focused on, I would say it's a well-rounded athletic composition. Being able to swim, being able to run a long ways, being able to cycle, while still having a good deadlift and a good squat, and I've been lucky to be able to enjoy the best of all of those worlds through athletics. And yeah, I think that that and Olympic weightlifting, those are the kind of primary goals in the gym throughout sort of the last decade. I'm 33. I started lifting seriously when I was sort of 18 or 19, and really started to have a deeper understanding of training and lifting, and that's a personal thing, right? You know, you can have coaches and you can have mentors and you can go online and read all of the things, but you gotta want to be there, and you gotta want to figure out what works for you, because that's how you'll build a deeper understanding with stuff, right? Like you can watch all the guitar chords and all the guitar apps, but unless your fingers are moving around on the fretboard, you know, it's the work that counts, kind of regardless if it's in the gym or outside.
Yeah, and I think it's important to find something where you really don't have to motivate yourself too much to do it. Like I found with aesthetics, for me, it's like the one thing I've never, especially being in the gym, the one thing I've never had to like motivate myself to do. You know, if anything, I had to motivate myself to not do it as much, so I had like a little bit more balance in my life.
As far as
Um,
aesthetics go, like wanting to have an aesthetic physique.
just training for aesthetics in general, just kind of seeing your physique as like an art form and then kind of building it accordingly. That was
Yeah,
always like really interesting to me. I did grappling for a very long time.
yeah.
Um, I even did collegiate paintball for a very long time for the UCI paintball team as well, and
Oh, yeah.
stuff of this sort. But it just never really kind of like as exciting. And like I really just loved being there all the time. And I think that makes such a huge difference when you kind of do find how to use movement as medicine to like what matches your personality best instead of just kind of going towards uh, maybe what would produce some kind of result and stuff of that sort.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that um, you know, I watch people who are overweight walking around, and it's a sort of a prison that comes on very slowly, right? It's awful to see when you see someone who's really overweight, and it it just it really crushes the quality of life of a lot of people, right? I mean, as far as their health is concerned, no doubt, but their mentality, their outlook, our our thoughts and our actions and our behaviors are so intimately linked with our hormones and the chemical cascades that control our bodies and their rhythms. And I think that being overweight and being out of shape has a horrific um, meta impact on all of those things. I think that once an aesthetic physique or an otherwise athletic and healthy body composition in body and mind has been attained, you, especially over a long period of time, you don't want to lose that. It's something that you hold on to because it's valuable, because you know what being athletic and being strong and being able to breathe and being able to run up a flight of stairs, that's a treasure that you don't want to lose. And injuries can cause it, and addictions can cause you to lose it. And there's a myriad of life factors that could get in the way between you and how your health should be. um and I think that's something that keeps me coming back to the gym, and it keeps me active, and it keeps me focused with my athletic goals, because I cherish that. And I think that maybe people who have been unhealthy, or they've dealt with illness, or they've dealt with being overweight, and they say to themselves, I don't want to be in this position anymore, maybe they hold on to it even more, right? It's uh you know being strong and being fit is a beautiful feeling, and it's a treasure that you want to try to hold on to for as long as you can. I mean, we're all going to get old and get sick and die, but there's a hell of a lot of wonderful life between when that stuff starts to kick in. And so um being in the gym and lifting is a fantastic way to maintain that for as long as you can. And it is a treasure, and it's important. And I enjoy like a burger and fries as much as the next guy does, or a can of Coke or whatever it was. You should only ever drink Coke before lifting for the sugar content. It's insane that people drink that in the average course of the daily life. But um, eventually, eating crappy food just doesn't feel good, right?
Hmm.
And like, I mean, even if you don't want to eat that salad and that chicken breast and the Greek salad and drink a green shake or whatever it is, maybe maybe a burger would taste a lot better in that moment. But eventually, the feeling of just eating great food and trying to as much as you can just diminishes how much you want that burger, right? I think that's kind of a key step to all of this is building a mental paradigm of I eat good food, and that's all there is to it. I go into the grocery store, I pick up my greens, I go to the butcher to get quality meats. I prepare them in a quality way. I enjoy them, and I don't want to find myself preoccupied with sugars and poor fats, and that's a rabbit hole in itself. But just developing a mental schema of I eat well, and that's all there is to it. And I'm going to carry that out on a daily basis. It's ingraining things into your identity and personality is a, a key step to being able to hold on to them long term. It's not like I'm going to go on a you hear that all the time. I'm going to go on a diet in the new year. I'm going to go on a diet. Okay, well, what does that mean? Like, how long is that diet gonna last? Like, you might very well be alive for the next like 50 years. You're gonna go on a diet for 2 weeks, and like is that what the plan is? Really? Why don't you hop on a relationship with food and what you choose to eat that's gonna last you the rest of your life, where you don't have to make concessions or you don't have to like have a cheat day. Um, those are options that are available, but I think people don't spend enough time thinking deeply about those kind of things to come up with their own ideas that work for them.
Yeah, and I think like especially in the US right now, like mental and physical pathology has been normalized to such an extent that
Yeah,
people living in a state of pathology don't even kind of see it as a state of pathology. So like here, for example, like 90% of people are metabolically unhealthy right
yeah,
now.
yes,
And uh, 85% of personal bankruptcies are due to health issues in the US, which is kind of startling considering 90% of people are metabolically unhealthy and almost all bankruptcies are due to health issues, which makes sense because it's so expensive. The average American, according to Robert Kawasaki, has like 800 bucks in their account. So
yeah,
imagine you have an injury that's like 15 grand or 20 grand in medical costs, which is the bare minimum, and you have
right,
$800, all of a sudden it's like you're really screwed and might have to file bankruptcy just because of that alone.
right. So
And
bankruptcy as it relates to like illnesses that require hospitalization or extended courses of drugs or medications, that kind of thing.
yeah, or you can't go to work because you're injured or you're sick or something of that sort and you're laid off and you have 800 bucks to your name. It's like all of a sudden you're kind of really screwed at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Having you don't have your health, you got nothing, and you got to cherish it and hold on to it, right? You've only got one body, only got the other thing is like just taking care of your health from a diet and a training perspective, as well as avoiding major injuries. Like people that I'll talk to some guys like, oh yeah, I tore my ACL twice when I was playing football in high school or something, and it's like that's a life changing injury. Like that's a life course altering injury as far as what your future athletic capacity is going to be. And people are just like, oh yeah, like I tore my ACL or my the meniscus in my insert whatever joint it is, and it's like I hear about people talking about these injuries like it's like just oh well it happened, and a lot of these injuries happen in their teens or 20s, and they go, oh I threw out my shoulder or something, and and they don't really attend to it properly, and they just start to live with it. And it's like, I don't think you could do a snatch or a shoulder press or something if you threw out your shoulder when you were 15 years old and then never did anything about it. So I
Hmm.
mean, there's the two-part issue with the diet and with the health, and but as well as, major impact injuries, including concussions and things that can lead to mental health as well. That you know, try to take care of yourself. Don't wind up with ACL tears and stuff that can really put a dampener on being able to enjoy health and fitness into later years. You know?
Yeah, and I also, this is kind of why it kind of goes back to, I personally found like training for aesthetics to be like very, very safe.
It is.
Especially when you get like a very deep mind muscle. Anything can happen, of course, but I'm saying it's safer than a lot of the other physical activities you could get into, especially with various sports, because a lot of times injuries in sports may not be dependent on you. You know, someone can cross check you in like soccer and tear your ACL that way or whatever. I had various injuries when I was grappling as well. Luckily, like not serious injuries, but they happen nonetheless.
Yeah.
So these days, I just kind of like I stick to the gym. I go for my walks. I do try to master like the AR platform to do rifle shooting with that platform, but that's not like taxing on your body whatsoever. And I wish I did it more often. I got a little bit lazy with it, but I do try to go hunting at least like once every 2 months. My goal initially was once every month, but that quickly went to 2 months because I couldn't get over the fact that it's just so much easier to get your food from a grocery store, you know?
Yeah, it is. It is, but you take down a 1,000 pound elk or moose or something like that. It could be food for years, depending on on how it's frozen, put together, and how many people are eating it. So the I back to your original comment there on aesthetics training and generally how safe it is. You're absolutely right. It is. It's a fairly low impact discipline that you can do for a long time and still stay healthy. It's and something you can enjoy into old age as well. And I've been lucky, knock on wood, I haven't had any real serious injuries in my life. Like I've broken a few bones, but otherwise, like no like soft tissue damage, like the stuff that really can mess you up. So as for now, I still I lift weights every day in some form or another. It might be a full on training session of 90 minutes, or it might just be going down for some curls or some dips or whatever for 20 25 minutes. I don't, I've never made it a big thing into my head. It's not like here's my gym bag loadout and all of my various powders, and now I'm visual and fun and get in for a good hard session and a good sweat. And other times it's, time's limited in the day, gonna go and do 20 25 minutes, and that's it. It's not making it into a big deal.
Well, I mean, a random question, but like, how do you think like, especially Western countries got to the place of where they are today in the sense of, I'm pretty sure even in your area, you can kind of probably step outside anywhere. And like 9 out of 10 people you run into are full of obesity, misery, and disease, you know? And you would think right now it's like you have an abundance of so much stuff, food is readily available. I mean, it would be any caveman dreams come true, you know, if they woke up knowing they can go to the grocery store and just get whatever they want and have like a heater at home, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, people are lazy, and the default state, if everything's put in front of you, is one of laziness and energy conservation, right? And that's no fault of any individual. I think that's like a standard part of the human experience, right? I look at what happened during COVID. If you give people money, they'll stay inside and watch Netflix, right? They laziness and the disinterest in putting out hard work is something that you need to fight against every single day. And I'm no different than you or anyone else who watches this. That you have to fight against that instinct to just relax and take your foot off the gas. Um, I think the other factor is that the abundance and gluttony is, if things are too easy, then there's no incentive to get up off your butt. And it's kind of like with strength today, you don't need to have a huge deadlift to get your way through the world and to have a healthy and happy life and good relationships. You don't need to go out hunting. You don't need to be able to run through the forest. It's everything's already been done for you. And so in the absence of a genuine need to have those capabilities, you have to find a way in your head to challenge yourself and get up off your butt to go and do it. Because otherwise, yeah, you're right, you just turn into a jab of the gut sitting on the sofa, and there's no reason to get up and do it. So that internal motivation you need to be able to find on your own, and no one, there's no self-help book that you can read that's going to tell you how to do that. That's something that you just need to work out and figure out yourself. And so you're right, in our world of abundance, where large corporations and supply chains deliver Twinkies straight to your door if you want, basically everything except actually put it on a spoon and put it into your mouth for you, just reject that stuff. Like, really just look at it and go, this isn't for me. Like, I've never ordered Uber Eats in my life. I've never, I seldom eat out. I seldom do any takeaway. Um, People go, oh, it's so inconvenient, I have to cook. Yes, you're right. You do have to cook, and you do have to get good at it. And you have to invest the time in that to figure out what you like and how to prepare stuff, and how to, you know, feed yourself. Like, Uber Eats is feeding you, really? Like, you
They're
like
like,
that
yes.
joke to me, man. Like, get lost. I don't want Uber Eats feeding me, because regardless of what's in the quality of the food, it's I gotta go through making some food and preparing it and then enjoying it for it to be meaningful to me. If my kung pao chicken just shows up at my door lukewarm and ready to go, that makes me feel like a sack of shit. Like, there's a lot more joy in creating it and preparing it for yourself and then sitting down and eating it. It's like, you are not too busy that you can't prepare and do some meal prep and make some good food for yourself. I would take anyone to task on that. I'm sorry, you're not so busy that you can't do that. I think preparing your own food, selecting your own veggies and your meats from the grocery store, like, that's necessity. Like, that's just as important as breathing and getting up in the morning. You have to be able to do that stuff yourself. Like, give yourself a sense of agency in your life. Like, people who are overweight or struggling with depression or struggling with any of the all too unfortunately common issues and illnesses that we have, give yourself a sense of agency over your choices. Having Netflix select a show for you and having Uber Eats deliver your meal for you, and having someone pick you up and drop you off somewhere, that is removing agency. That's removing your
Mhm.
own personal choice. And I think there's a lot of value in taking those things back and having a feeling of power to make your own judgment calls on doing things. And that does come at a cost of convenience. And it does come at a cost of, it's going to take you more time. And maybe you do have to invest more effort in the things that you could have previously outsourced. But there is value in doing those things yourself. I really believe that. So, rant
Yeah,
over.
yeah. Quick caveat here. A lot of people forget that being overweight takes a lot of time, money, and effort too. Like a tremendous amount of time, money. Like you mentioned, it doesn't happen overnight, A. So it takes consistent behaviors year after year after year. You have to go, in your case, it was Uber Eats, but most people go and drive to somewhere and eat. And they
Right.
choose to pay, it's usually a 300% markup from that equivalent meal you can make at home. They choose to pay that money, which took them time to make on top of that, then eat that food 1 to 3 times a day for decades. So it takes a lot of time, effort, and money and then it takes a lot of money on top of that to sustain a very overweight physique. Like the average American spends $8,000 to $16,000 a year on just non-essential expenses that contribute to their obesity, which includes like eating out, alcohol, subscription services. And then when you tell them a 2,000 calorie organic diet is 5,000 per year, they're like, ah, too expensive. I'm like, dude, you're spending, even when I show them, you're spending literally 8 to 16,000, let's just say on average, 12,500 a year on keeping yourself obese. And you just told me 5,000 a year is too much for organic food, you know? I don't know what if you've run into this before with various friends or just random people that try to say like, "Oh, I can't do what you're doing. It's too hard." I'm like, dude, being you is too hard. Do it. I don't know how people go without going to the gym or eating. Or I think they just have a higher pain tolerance than us, ironically, because I wouldn't be able to live with that much pain day after day. You know?
Yeah, you've got a very good point there that yeah, a lot of people really do believe that eating healthier foods or making more kind of health conscious diet and lifestyle decisions is somehow more costly. I have found in every instance that that is false. Every instance, without
Mm-hmm.
exception. Um, my take on that is I even wrote out a little guide that's in the link on my page there of uh it's either 5 or 6 daily recipes that I eat every day. And without like no joke, it's every single day the same types of foods with some small variations. And if you have a lentil dish and a curry dish and a green drink that has fruits and veggies in it and a bone broth and 3 different types of salads, a Greek salad, a spinach salad, and like a lettuce cabbage based salad, that kind of thing. Preparing them is simple. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've got a good example right here. I was just at the grocery store and went and picked up all of the things required for a big curry lentil dish that is going to last me for the next 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how much I'm eating. It was $16. $16 for 30 meals, like 30 servings with quinoa and with rice and with the cabbage that gets sliced up and thrown on top. That's $16. That's like what the cost of like a foot long from Subway or Quiznos is. And so, and the quality of the curry dish with its minerals, vitamins, soluble and insoluble fiber. I mean, just look at the dish. It's super colorful. Like the amount of different veggies that are in there and all of those complex molecules that even produce those colors, it is chock full of nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like a gray mystery meat, wilted vegetables from Jack in the Box or something. We don't have Jack in the Box in Canada, but I know you guys do in the U.S. Um, it's back to my point is that when I have that curry dish and I've got a bunch of spinach chopped up on top of it and a handful of chopped up chicken on top, that's as good as it gets, man. Like that's the highest quality. Throw a boiled egg in on the side, like that's all the protein and minerals and fiber and nutrition that you need to have a healthy, sustained life. And it doesn't cost a lot. You can make it at home, right? It's I just keep on harping on the same things, the same simple recipes, and you prepare them for yourself. You enjoy them, and it's simple. It's not that costly. To your point about getting healthy, getting in shape, losing weight, whatever the situation is, it's hardest. The first step is the hardest, right? Like that sounds like it's right out of a optimism be happy book or something, but it's true. The first couple of steps towards something are the hardest and the longest and are the most difficult and the most testing. And then after that, you start to figure it out. Like think about something like being obese or being overweight and you've never run a mile in your life. holy crap, that mile is going to be hard. And in the coming months, though, there are going to be fundamental chemical shifts in your body, as far as your hormones, as far as your fat composition, as far as your organ function. And you were talking about like a generalized metabolic syndrome earlier, right? In the process of reversing those types of conditions, there are chemical cascades that fundamentally alter the chemical composition of your body in your favor when you start to work harder to lose that weight or to build that muscle, right? um like those are chemical and physical changes that are working in your favor. So it started out hard, started out difficult, absolutely, but uh you know, rocks gain momentum as they roll downhill, right? But you gotta push, gotta push the hardest at the beginning to start making something happen, make a change.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've experienced this as well, but I find it's tough to make change for a lot of people because inevitably you can't solve a problem with the same belief system that led to the problem. So you need like an external belief system to come in and kind of saturate whatever you got going on, whatever roadblock you have going on in that area of your life. And a lot of people, because again, 9 out of 10 people are metabolically sick, a lot of people just don't even have that in their circle. Luckily, they do have podcasts available so they can kind of get into different circles, you know what I mean? Coincidentally or just by accident. But for me, I found it like super easy because I grew up with my grandmother in Ukraine off grid, right? So I started to learn about biodynamic farming and to live with the cycles of nature there. And then my dad got me into lifting weights with him when I was already 10. I was already in the gym with him, you know, and if
Yeah,
that didn't happen, if I was just raised by, let's say, like an average American family, where it's like the
yeah.
average male is like 27% body fat on 2 prescription medications, then obviously there's really honestly no hope. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I was just wondering if you observed that as well.
Yeah, we are people are not equal, and people are not equally gifted or equally talented. And I think it would be a disservice to people to have them think that they are able to have the same results from the same amount of work input. I think that that would be a disservice to their own individual unique talents and abilities in a given context or circumstance. And so, you know, what may work for someone is not going to work for others. And some people definitely are starting from a disadvantaged standpoint, whether it's life or mindset or circumstance, whatever it is. And yes, you may have to work way harder than somebody else. That's just a fact of life. That's a fact of nature. And well, welcome to reality, man. Nature is unfair, and maybe you don't have genetics as good as someone else. Maybe you didn't have an extremely unique experience like you growing up in a rural setting in a foreign country to where you live now. And yeah, maybe you were brought up on a pegboard IKEA existence with sugary snacks and Game Boys. And yeah, the guy who is living off in the woods lifting kettlebells is probably going to be in better shape than you, and is starting from a more advantaged standpoint with regards to that situation. And you know, maybe it's about reading some books, listening to some podcasts, and developing your own kind of fitness identity as you move forward on that journey. And it very much is, right? It is a journey. It's not a destination. I'll shut up with the cliche sounding terms, but it's true. I'm on a lifting, health, fitness, personal development journey, and it never ends, right? It only ends when you exit the game. And that's you know, finding some joy in that and figuring out what works for you is an integral part. To your point about listening to podcasts and trying to educate yourself and stuff, absolutely invaluable, absolutely invaluable. The things that the internet and social media have done for um the spread of really excellent high quality information and the ability to think and learn in new ways by observing and watching how other people do things and how they've worked through issues has been absolutely invaluable. I can speak from my own personal experience. I've I read, I listen intently, I watch what other people do, and I try to pick out the little parts that really work for me and really resonate for me, and I integrate them into my own life. No one can give you a roadmap, and no one can give you the 12 steps to life, how to be successful, but you can certainly pick out valuable things that other people say and integrate them into your your own kind of lexicon of behaviors, mindsets, mental toolbox, all that kind of stuff. And I try to do that, and I do it all the time. And you definitely sound like you're someone who does that as well.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious, have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Eugene Trufkin. Now let's dive back into the podcast.
Well, do you at the beginning of the show, you mentioned, oh, the ideal is to move out into a cabin in the woods, et cetera, which pretty much, I mean, not everyone can do, but it's quite easy to do and oftentimes way cheaper than living in a city and way less hassle as well. But do you find, I kind of always found personally, like once you have your biological needs met, any pursuit in the external world after that point just provides like sugar highs at best. And they might be great sugar highs, no doubt, but it's like you accomplish one thing, it might make you like super happy, maybe for an hour or a few months or a few years. But then you're kind of back to like square one, and then off to the next thing you go. And then it might take up a few of your years, and then you'll accomplish it. It'll give you a sugar high, and the next thing you go. And I think at the end of the day, it's just the central nervous system trying to get you to survive better, and its only task is to get you to survive better in the external world. So it constantly has you pursuing outward, because and it usually has to do with accumulation always, you know what I mean, to accumulate more of one thing or another, whether it's more friends, more money, more resources of any kind, which inevitably just enhance survival. But I noticed this pattern. It's like you accomplish something, makes you feel great, and then back to square one. That is after your biological needs have been met, you know? Anything after that, I feel it's kind of like possibly taking you further away from essence, you know what I mean? And getting you lost in these endless pursuits. I don't know what your personal experience has been with that or your take on it.
Um, me personally, I don't need a ton of time off from my work and professional pursuits and the things that I care about as far as finances, personal success, with that kind of stuff. I think for me, I so I was walking down the street in Hong Kong last week, and I was looking up at these apartment blocks that are they're maybe sort of 15, 20 stories of just a wall of sooty, black, dirty, wretched looking rental apartments with air conditioners sticking out and antennas bent at odd angles and bits of clothing and sheets and lines hanging out. And it looked absolutely apocalyptic to me. And it's no shade on the people who are living there or however those buildings came to be. Obviously, it's just an observation of watching or seeing sardines packed into a can like that. And I just come from a completely different world than whatever world those people are living in, and it just looked like a kind of a hell to me, a hellscape. Now, keep in mind, maybe the people that are there are living perfectly happy lives with their families. I don't really know, but to me, it looked horrendous because
Mm-hmm.
my whole life, I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time outdoors in nature. in the forests, either hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, and I know what I feel like when I'm barefoot walking on moss in the sun in the forest, and if it's just for a walk on the trail, or I'm going to the river to go and hop in or whatever, and I know what I felt like when I was looking up at those apartment blocks and those buildings, and I think that that's something that's kind of uh, there's a deep revulsion response to being in that kind of concrete jungle like that. I think, you know, up until the past couple hundred years, the previous lot of million, we were out in the woods, like we were running around with painted faces, hunting snakes or boar or whatever it happened to be, and I think that those are innate instincts that are very alive and well under that very thin veneer of uh, of 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 civilized modern life. And I think that the the more time that I spend in nature, the more time that I spend around animals, I feel better. And I try to do as much of that as I can. I mean, there's a kind of carelessness that's normal to animal life that has been kind of lost in human beings. You know, the animal hunts and then it lays in the sun, and it doesn't have much thought about the past or the future,
Hmm.
neither of which it's just living in the moment doing its thing, where we are our minds are filled with plans and thoughts of the future, and regrets or happy memories of the past. And being out in nature and being, going and chopping the wood and fetching the water has a grounding effect of putting you in the moment. And I
Hmm.
crave that, and I love it, and it's a wonderful relief from the responsibilities and the very complex modern world that we live in, that you have to navigate through with a hunter gatherer brain. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, my whole thing is like, I'm just wondering if kind of like that saying goes, if the squeeze is worth the juice, or however it goes here. Um, if all those benefits of modern society outweigh the negatives, because I feel, I don't know how it is in Canada, but I feel, in a sense, people are stuck to symptom management healthcare here. They're totally addicted to just like pills and needles and stuff of that sort. And it's kind of like, you have a lot of smart people, especially in the health field. But what I find they're doing is, let's say you're stuck in some toxic swamp, and they're stuck in it. But instead of figuring out a way how to get out of it, they use their intelligence to figure out a way how to tinker around continuing to be in that swamp and somehow do a damage control to get to the other side. But my thinking is like, dude, like, just take 3 steps to the right and step out of the damn swamp. And you don't have to come up with all these complicated systems of how to maintain your mental and physical and spiritual health. And it just most always just happens naturally. I don't know, how's healthcare in Canada? Do you feel it's just all about pills, more drugs, and that's about it?
I think Canada as a nation is probably healthier than the US. I see when we go across the border, and I've spent a lot of time in the US. I'm pretty well traveled throughout the United States. Um, I think as far as like obesity and being unhealthy, I think the US is probably unhealthier. I might be speaking from a bit of a bubble though, because where I live in a city that's very oriented towards like athletics, and like you see people walking around in like tights and athleisure type clothing, and so it's being being fit is like as much as like a social status thing as it is like a fashion symbol a little bit. It's odd when I put it in those terms, but I think that's accurate. Versus when I'm, last summer we I was in Mississippi and then Louisiana, and you that's a different world altogether from where I'm from, and there's a lot of obesity, and it is tied to socioeconomic factors. It is tied to, there's probably like a generational component in there as well.
Hmm.
Your parents are overweight, so you're fat and overweight, and this shitty cycle just continues. So it's easy for us to say, oh, well, take a couple steps and you'll be healthy and you'll change everything. But those couple steps may, people, I think, in those situations are probably just blind to, right? They can't see where those steps are that they have to take. And I think that's a big challenge. That's like a big hurdle to people breaking out of cycles of living that aren't working for them anymore. So my idea for that is, yeah, you gotta kind of self-educate, right? You gotta listen to podcasts like this one. You gotta listen to books and read articles and try to educate yourself a little bit on how to get from the point that you're at, which is not working, to a point where you want to be. And no one can do the reading for you. No one can do the listening for you. You gotta want to. But I think it's we're living in probably the most interesting time in human history. For like the last 100,000 years, we farmed and hung out with our animals in the field, and now suddenly we're chatting on little glowing rectangles about how to be healthier. So, um,
Yeah. I would think actually
I
storming
gotcha. Okay.
castles. I would think actually storming castles in the medieval days would be way more badass than this, but that's just me, you know.
Yeah, I bet there was a correlating factor there with testosterone levels and birth rates. And I bet, people didn't know if they were going to live to see tomorrow. So like, let's have some fun now, and let's go and conquer and pillage and have children and sail the seas. And it was probably I mean, I'm idolizing it, and I'm having fun with it. But there was definitely more opportunities for grand adventure then than there is now. But I don't think that, you know there's still plenty of wonderful opportunities today for exploration and for being healthy.
I'm just always curious of asking people this question. Some people it's just like they're not interested at all. But have you ever questioned like the accuracy of volition? Like, for example, like even if something as small as like moving your hand, you know what I mean, extending your hands, there has to be like millions of neurotransmitters that fire that then send a signal down your spinal cord into the nerve root, into all the muscles that extend your hands. Do you ever notice that you only notice it after the fact? You never notice the hand moving before.
Yeah, is that like a sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous system? Like you mean like involuntary movement, involuntary muscle contraction or expansion? You mean?
No, even when it's voluntary, like even when you move it, quote unquote, voluntary, do you notice you just notice the movement after the fact? Never before. You consciously notice it only after it has already happened.
Hmm?
So who's actually making that happen?
Well, it's very much you. It's very much you. It's just you don't think about your heart beating for it to continue beating, right? You don't. When you're asleep and unconscious, there's a hell of a lot of complex processes that still have to be happening to keep you alive, but you're not thinking about it. Um, and all of those types of movements and those unconscious knee jerk responses, I think, are like that's part of the really old hardware, right? Like the hardware that came along long before language and abstract thought and the long before the forebrain got started, the lizard brain in control of all of those types of things, which is also where a lot of your instincts and gut instincts, all of those things, I think, are all intimately wrapped up with those really ancient thought processes that run that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely, I always get mixed responses when I bring that up. But how about this one? Do you ever notice with thoughts, they kind of like pop up like bubbles
Mm.
and then they kind of subside into like this nothing conceivable or perceivable kind of blankness, and then another thought pops up. And it
Yeah,
kind of happens like that all day. But do you notice even with thoughts, you only notice it like after the fact? Like you
yeah.
have an idea and you only notice it after. But where did that come from?
I couldn't tell you, but it's why I keep a notebook, because I have lots of ideas pop up like that. And if I didn't have a source for writing it down, I would probably all go out the window.
Yeah. Well, what are your goals for this year? Do you have any kind of set plans for yourself?
Um, because a lot of our conversation is surrounded kind of uh, biology, philosophy, fitness, athletics, that kind of stuff. For me, I've accomplished a lot of the kind of the strength goals and muscle related goals that I've wanted to, I think. And like I don't have aspirations for like a 650 pound deadlift rather than a 600, or increase my squat X amount of weight. It's not so much of it's not that important to me anymore. And so now boxing and jits is martial arts side of things is where my focus and attention is going now. And yeah, there's so spending accumulating hours in the gym and on the mats that's going to be a priority for this year. And I think the kind of common thread there is like just always be evolving, right? Like you walk into the gym and you do your first set of curls, fantastic, well done. Learn how to do the squats, and next come the deadlifts, and then next come your first powerlifting comp or your first weightlifting comp, or you get on stage for your first amateur bodybuilding show, whatever it is. It's just keep evolving, right? Like that no one is saying you need to be stuck in the same weight routine or the same, and most people do, right? Like year in year out. Like I've probably had gym members. I've probably had memberships at like probably 25 different gyms throughout my life, wherever I've cities and other countries that I've lived or here. And but you see the same people doing the same stuff. Like I went back recently to a gym that I had trained at like 8-10 years ago. I see the same people walking on the treadmill and doing the same, lifting the same. It's like if I grabbed this person by the shoulders and shook them, like would I get any response, or are they just somehow absent and inaccessible, that they're just doing the same thing and seeing the same results year in year out? Um,
Not to interrupt, well, at least they mastered the consistency principle. Now they just need to get a better program. You know?
Showing up is only part of it, right?
It
Like,
is. It's the
oh,
toughest part for most people, I would say,
yeah,
consistently showing up.
yeah, like yes, you have a strong grasp of the obvious. Yes, you have to show up, but like the process really
Yeah.
begins after you've mastered that. Like it's not enough just to show up anymore. It really isn't, and it probably never was. Like sure, you plucked up the courage to get your first gym membership, or show up to a Pilates class or whatever it happens to be. Fantastic. Now start investing some effort and some work, and once you've started to kind of smooth out those routines and your understanding of what you're doing in the gym, then you seek to evolve. Like whatever it's for me, it's martial arts, and that's where I'm going to be dedicating my time for the foreseeable future. And I just want to keep learning and evolving and figuring out what comes next within the unique sets of disciplines that interest me. And for me, that's a general, well-rounded athletics. So
Do you have any kind of, I know finances are oftentimes tied to a lot of people's health. Do you have any good financial philosophies that you've adopted over the years that have worked well for you?
um I don't really think it would be my place to really comment on that stuff. Like I'm certainly not any kind of guru or leader or coach as far as life and finances go. I've always been a fairly frugal person. I don't my my um I don't spend a ton of money. I don't really. Like I spend money on the things that I care about that are important to me as far as my hobbies. So my tools, my gear, my vehicles, my when I look at the nature of my purchases, it's usually into something rather utilitarian that serves a purpose to advance a hobby or something I'm interested in. So I don't spend a lot of money on entertainment, on clothing, on apparel, on those kinds of things. And I think if money is an issue for whatever reason, Start engaging in some self-entertainment, man. Like a library card is a lot cheaper than a Netflix subscription, and a homemade curry is a lot cheaper than eating some junk food out. And do you really, really need that new pair of shoes right now, right? Like just getting a little bit more critical of yourself and how you're spending your money is that's an important step. But like I said, I don't want to speak out of turn here because a lot of people have legitimate financial problems due to the precariousness of employment or jobs or exorbitant cost of living wherever they are. So I kind of want to be careful with that. But as far as I'm concerned, living a bit more of a frugal life can often be more fulfilling than an extravagant one, right? Being a little bit more pious and a little bit more monk-like in how you choose to eat and how you choose to entertain yourself. Those are good for steps, especially for like a single guy in his 20s. Like all that gallivanting around and drinking and partying and stuff. It's essentially wasted time, right? And so I think when it comes to that stuff, doing with awareness really matters a lot. Oh, am I going out for the third night partying and drinking? Oh, is it another write-off weekend because I was staying up late chasing some skirts that never led anywhere? Is it just choosing to engage in hedonism and entertainment and instant gratification with awareness, not just mindlessly doing? I think that's it's a simple little mental cue to kind of pump the brakes for a split second mentally and go, do I really need to be doing this right now, or would I do a better job of just simply going to the gym and going to the library and grabbing a book that I'm going to learn something from and catching an early night? Those little changes can really add up.
Yeah. Well, how about your take on like relationships and health?
Like a relationship with health or relationships with others?
A relationship with others and how they relate to your health overall. Because I find like, for example, especially um, with marriage, for example, if it's like a person's priority to get married or find like a life partner, I find that's even more important that you do the right thing there than the right career. Because if you make the mistake in that area, for sure, it's going to be like a disaster. At least I've seen it be a disaster for many people.
Yeah. Um. Don't be overweight, and don't allow your partner to be overweight either. And how you go about facilitating that is going to be very situation specific. But I being in shape and athletic for your partner is a sign of respect, and it's a sign of showing regard for your health, for your longevity, and for the quality of your relationship. I mean, that's laying it out really bare, but it's true. It really is. You've you know you need to be able to work with a partner if they've got health issues or illnesses or goals that they're trying to accomplish or get to. If you've made a commitment to that person, then you've also made a commitment to trying to work with them and be helpful to them and to aid and be an advocate for their goals. And that goes both ways, right? It doesn't matter, male or female. It really goes both ways. If you've made a commitment to somebody, then that's I would say you've got an obligation to be healthy and to stay in shape. Your quality of life will be better. Your relationship will be better. It's undeniable. And modern social conventions aside that may take issue to that, it's a simple fact of life that being healthier is better.
Do you find these days it's harder to find a committed life partner than in the past?
We could speak at length. I think that that's a very deep rabbit hole right now that I would rather not discuss. But at another time, I'd be happy to discuss the the issues of our time with regards to relationships, because it's, I mean, that's such an expansive field that we could talk at length for sure.
Okay, cool. Well, are there any other topics you would like to cover? I'm open ears for those are the questions I pretty much had. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think so. I think that it's an excellent thing that we're able to get together and chat and to share and explore perspectives. Right? It's amazing. How old are you?
I'm 40.
You're 40 years old,
I'm
dude.
40, man. Yeah. I never
Yeah.
thought the day would come. I was planning on dying at 25, you know?
Well, you're 40. Well, you're looking sharp for 40 years old, my friend.
Oh, thank
That
you.
that adds a lot more credence to your page and everything you're working on, if that's the case. That's awesome. I figured you were my age or even possibly younger than me. I mean, you're on a tiny little iPhone screen, but that's really impressive. It's
It
that's
snuck up on me out of nowhere, man. I'm warning you. You're 33 now. Watch, you're going to wake up tomorrow. You're going to be 40. I never thought the day would come, you know?
it really it really does. But I can say that I think I really started to come into my own as a man, as who I wanted to be and what I was really about in my like later 20s. And I think that's probably a progression that continues from that point forward. Like it took me a long time to like sort out who I was and what I was doing and what I was really all about. And I think it was only, yeah, this is, late 20s before you really start to figure that stuff out. And I think for younger guys listening, like late teens, early 20s, it's a really difficult time for a lot of guys, right? They're most are like shut out of the sexual marketplace. They don't understand women, they don't understand money, they don't understand how the world works. They're probably, I should be careful with that. Not probably. A lot are isolated, confused. That's like a really tough time for younger guys, but it really like your life gets a lot better when you try harder and when you as you get older. I really think things starts to kick in like late 20s for guys. Like they start to get their, if they got their head in the game, they're making some money, they're starting to figure stuff out, and it just they start to get a lot better. So it's that could be kind of a keystone of this conversation, is that effort is not wasted, and as you proceed along, if your head's screwed on and you're spending the time to learn and to build your body and build your mind, like it's only looking up, right?
Yeah. That's interesting that you said it's kind of tougher these days. I thought it would be like honestly easier if you know where to get the right information. Because especially with like you mentioned that don't know women, like back in my day, we didn't even have like YouTube, you
No.
know? The you only miraculously can run into some random books here and there that teach you about like how to even date, but really it's just like you're thrown out there in the field and you learn as you go.
Yeah.
But inevitably, you are right. But I'm just wondering why really that's the case, because I think the information is definitely there, but for some reason it's not being kind of utilized. And there's some kind of definitely huge roadblocks in terms of achieving financial independence or, you know, in the dating scene or health or whatever. Um, that would be interesting why that would be the case, you know?
I think maybe there's just a bit of a lag, right? Like, there's the information is out there if you want to go and find it, but you got to be motivated to do it, and you got to, like, I'm not sure that I agree with you that things would be easier now for younger guys coming up trying to figure their shit out. I would say that it's probably a lot more challenging, even than when we were growing up. I think that it's a lot easier just to like medicate and to disappear into video game land than it is to improve yourself and to try to get out there and compete, right? And I think that that's kind of, you know, um, if you don't want to compete or you think it's impossible to compete, and when I say compete, I mean in like a life sense, like getting yourself out there and getting better as a man and trying to improve yourself. It's a lot easier to just kind of disappear into the void of vapes and YouTube and whatever else
Mhm.
than notice the grindstone and trying to work. Ultimately working hard at something and seeing some results is a lot more satisfying. But in the moment, maybe it is easier just to kind of vanish off into to Game Boy land or whatever it is for young guys who are you know probably don't have very good strong male role models or no father or there's that's a whole world unto itself, right? But I think that the tide is changing. There's better information out there for guys that want to find it, and for every schlub loser, there's a guy out there who maybe didn't get dealt the best hand, but he's still out there trying to make it happen, right? And I have all the time in the world for those types to try to give advice or to try to share my 2 cents or to spend time with those types, like you know some guy who's just a fat loser, but he's trying to improve. I have all the time in the world for that guy, right? Because he's trying to do something about it. And that's you may not be the strongest, most capable guy in the tribe, but if you're trying to produce some value for the other guys, you're trying to improve yourself like that, you will always be valued and you'll always have a place in the tribe. It's when you don't try to improve your situation or you don't try to produce any value, that's then there's no reason to respect you or to try to help you.
Yeah. Well, as a closing statement, I always wondered, like, sometimes it could easily, like, if you objectively look at it, it's like, hey, there are, an estimated like 200 billion galaxies in the universe. Each galaxy has anywhere between like 200 billion to trillion stars. And
Yeah.
you're in like one galaxy and you're on a single star that's an invisible speck on that star. It's kind of like sometimes you got to wonder, like, hey, what's the purpose to all this, you know?
um Here's my closing remark on that. I wouldn't really spend too much time trying to understand the reason that you're there or the meaning of life or all those kind of existential kind of circular questions. Instead, I would look at the fact that the possibility of my existence here was infinitely minuscule, but here I am. And I think that that is all the reason to move forward, to pursue my plans and goals and path and purpose and whatever that is for my unique situation, because I got that opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for being on the show. It was great to finally connect. I know it's probably been like 2 years probably at this point since we first connected, but better late than ever,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. So I'm Totenkov's Lab on Instagram, Totenkov Lab, Totenkov's Lab. There's an S in there. And yeah, the online I just try to post cool, funny things that I like and little bits of philosophy and advice and ideas. And I feel very fortunate we got together to have a chat and to explore some of this stuff. Right? It's contributing to the conversation, and I probably should do it a lot more. But Eugene, it was awesome talking to you, and you're doing great things out there, man. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time.
No, thank you. And for the listeners, I'm going to include his links in the show notes just so it's easier to find. Okay. So, all right, everyone. So it's have a good weekend and thanks for joining.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you've ever had trouble losing weight, or you've lost weight, but still didn't have the ideal body or health you're aiming for, please feel free to reach out anytime and book an assessment. Eugene will work with you to cover your goals in detail, see what's holding you back, and go from there. In the meantime, feel free to check out the countless testimonials on Eugene's website in the link below. In the testimonial section, you'll notice everyone has various backgrounds, are of all different ages, and all have had different challenges in their life, but they all have one thing in common: they were all able to find their health and achieve their ideal body. You're also welcome to add yourself to the Facebook group in the link below. There you'll have access to the live videos that Eugene does weekly on Sundays, and other helpful content. Thank you again for tuning in.